everything around me. Green, get the money, dollar bill, yo.
What's up, guys? Got some more Crowfall action for you today. Gonna be spicing it up a little bit with some Druid healing gameplay, something I'm very new at, so don't judge me too hard on this. But that's not what this video is about. Today I'm going to be talking about some changes I'd like to see made to Crowfall. Some of these that I'm going to be listing are things that they are actively working on, and in fact, we might be getting some of these in the next week or two, because I think I have a hunch that we're going to be getting an update of some kind in the next week or two with some substance. I don't think it'll be the dregs. I don't think it'll be the big shebang. But I do think we're going to get something of substance here in the next week to 3 weeks. Say that. So let's get started. First thing I'd like to see is upkeep costs on owning forts and keeps. Right now, you can own the forts and the keeps by just taking them. You don't have to do any sort of like upkeep of any kind. There's no sort of tax system yet. They've talked about this in the past. You basically, if you can own all 3 keeps in Crowfall and only log in for that 1 hour period, or it's less than that, like 30 minutes. In my opinion, if you want to dominate the map and if you want to own all 3 keeps, you need to dominate the world 24 hours a day. Maybe not to a crazy degree, but you need to have a presence in the world all of the time to be able to own everything. Or at least you need to have a presence in the world outside of siege times. Because that's a big problem with the game right now, is that there's a big login for siege mentality, right? Just log in for when the siege happens. That's really the only thing that matters that much. And if you win the siege, then you don't really have to worry about anything else because it gives you a ton of points, and you don't really have to worry about the forts and the outposts as much, right? I don't like that. I would much rather see the forts and the keeps, the forts to a much lesser extent than the keeps, have some sort of upkeep cost, some sort of something that you have to go and do to maintain them, right? Maybe you have to constantly repair the walls, so you constantly have to be going out and hitting up the mines, hitting up the lumber mills, hitting up the whatever. Something that makes you have to play outside of these siege windows, because there are a ton of people that just log on for the sieges and you never ever see them again in the game. You never see them out in the world doing anything. So I absolutely think there needs to be some sort of upkeep cost associated with owning things in the world, and the keeps in particular I think need to have a pretty serious upkeep cost because they're badass, right? You have a bank there, they give you a ton of points, but the login to siege mentality I think absolutely needs to be just nipped in the bud, because it's just not good for the game, because if you can't make those siege times, it sucks. And also people only playing for those siege times, it's just dumb, because the guild with the biggest Zerg just dominates, right? And it'll be less, I mean, yeah, the guild with the people with the most players are definitely going to have an advantage all the time anyway, but it'll be to a lesser extent, and it'll be more organizationally hard if they have to dominate outside of those 30-minute siege windows, right? So I'd like to see that. Another thing I'd like to see is more small-scale PvP objectives. Now, this is something that they've been working on, right? So the POIs, the mines, the lumber mill, the stone quarry places. In the future, you're not just going to be able to pick those up and just put them in your backpack. You're going to have to actually like escort them to the place you want to take them. Spirit banking will not be a thing in the future, so you're going to actually have to take the resources that you mine and manually bring them back to the forts and whatever. So in the future, this is something that's being worked on, but I'd like to see just more of them, just more small-scale PvP objectives, random world bosses that spawn, POIs that aren't even associated with winning, like victory points. I don't really have any concrete ideas, but I'm sure they can think of something. They're probably more creative than me, but I would just like to see more small-scale stuff. Stuff that is around the size of an outpost to take, maybe a little more, but just more stuff to do with your group of 2 to 4 players, something like that, right? Next up, this is another thing associated with small-scale PvP, and that's added value to outposts. So outposts right now, the respawn outpost, everybody loves it. The respawn outpost is amazing. There have been a ton of really good fights happening over the respawn outposts. People go and take the respawn outpost right before they go and take a fort or a keep, or try to take a fort or a keep. You even see people taking the respawn outpost mid-siege, so they can't respawn there. The respawn outpost is fantastic, and I think everybody would like to see more utility outposts like that. Very obvious one that you could do is a banking outpost. Again, this will have to be in the post-Spirit Bank era. One thing I'd really like to see them take advantage of, and I know they have the tech for it, is a crafting outpost or crafting POIs. So right now, if you go to a keep and craft, you get, I think, an extra pip, like an extra experimentation pip. It's nothing. It's not that great. You know, it's nice, but it's not the end of the world. It's not the greatest thing ever. But what I would love to see is a crafting POI where you have to take your you have to escort your crafting materials to Mount Doom, like Lord of the Rings shit. You gotta haul all this valuable shit to this crafting station that's up on a fucking volcano or some shit. But it's dope. And crafting at that crafting station gives you amazing benefits, but they gotta risk it and caravan your stuff up there, right? I would love to see stuff like that in the game, and I know they can do it. It's just they haven't gotten around to it yet. So I'd love to see that. Random world bosses, already mentioned that. I guess random announced world bosses. So right now we've got world bosses with the chiefs that are on timers. I think that's fine. I think that having a guild and having logistics and knowing those timers and knowing when they come up, I think that's cool for gameplay reasons too. I don't think we need to get rid of that, but I'd also like to see randomly Gaia's big fucking dragon comes down from the sky and it drops badass stuff and it announces it to the world. Everybody gets a notification that Gaia has summoned a dragon because she's pissed about some shit. I don't know. I'd like to see that kind of stuff. The fact that they have the gods, like the pantheon of gods in this game, means they can basically do anything and it makes sense. So, like, that's kind of they probably didn't intend for that, but, like, the whole having gods thing and sacrifice system, like, they can sort of just do whatever the fuck they want and justify it because the gods want this thing or whatever. So, luckily for them, they don't really have to adhere to any sort of logic or rules or really anything because it all sort of makes sense. Speaking of that, sorry, I'm fixing my mic. Daily / maybe every 3 days, God sacrifice bonuses. Some sort of daily, maybe every 48 hours, every 72 hours, some sort of essentially daily quest from the gods that gives you a buff. So my idea for this would be Kronos hates centaurs. Today, for whatever reason, Kronos says fuck the centaurs and everybody needs to go out and kill whatever, get 15 fucking centaur hooves. And the centaur hooves that they drop are unique items, unique item IDs, and they expire. So you can't stockpile these sacrifice items. You have to go and do this thing at this time period and do it before the time period is over to get some sort of sacrifice, get some sort of maybe a small combat buff, small crafting buff, small ethereal dust drop buff, basically some sort of daily, every 48 hours activity that gets everybody out in the world doing something at these hot spots, and it changes. So you can't stockpile the items, you can't do it, you can't sort of game the system and be like, oh, I'm just going to stock up a whole bunch of these things and not have to worry about going out in the world. Basically, these daily quests would serve as a thing to do to get people out in the world and sort of ignite organic PvP, right? Because if everybody's got to go get centaur hooves, then they're going to see people from all over getting centaur hooves. So that's kind of my idea. Obviously, it would have to not be super tedious. That's why I'm saying maybe every 48 hours, every 7, maybe it'd be fine every 24 hours, right? Maybe you don't want to get the buff all the time. But some sort of something that's some sort of daily activity, sacrifice some shit to the gods, whatever, just to get people out there and doing stuff. Next thing, more than one capture circle at keeps, during keep fights. So right now we have the Tree of Life, where everybody is fighting over the Tree of Life in the keeps, and it's just this big clusterfuck of insanity because everybody's in this small room. It'd be interesting to see if there were multiple capture circles for the keeps. Maybe you have to take them all simultaneously, or maybe they're quadrant based, right? So let's say there are three circles that you have to take, right? And you can only take them 25% at a time. So if you go and take the Tree of Life one, you have to take them all maybe simultaneously. Maybe I don't know how the details of this. I'm just spitballing, but maybe you have to take them all simultaneously, or they're quadrant based to where you have to take 25% of the tree let's use the tree, the statue, a tree and two statues, right? You have the res statue and some other statue, and then the tree. And you have to have people in each spot taking them in quadrants, right? So you can only get the tree of life down to 25%. Then you have to get the statue down to 25%. Then you have to get the other statue down to 25%. Now, if you do them all three at the same time, boom, you can burn them all at the same time. But if you don't, then you have to do them one at a time. I don't know. I'm just spitballing ideas, things to spread out the fights in the keeps because they're crazy and they're just, it's way too many people in too small of an area. For performance reasons, dumb. For just looking at it, it's dumb. It's just, the game naturally plays better when people are a little bit more spread out. I think having multiple capture circles, multiple capture vectors, I guess is a good word for it, would spread people out better. So I'd like to see something like that. Maybe for forts too. Forts might be too small for that to be a thing, but definitely for keeps, I'd like to see multiple capture vectors. Let's see what else is on my list here. Oh, I didn't mention this about outposts, but this goes into sieging, right? So I'd like to see some more added value to outposts. Maybe giving them small buffs, right? Small zone-wide buffs, but these buffs get magnified during siege time, right? So let's say, and this is more stuff to spread the siege fight out, because the siege fight all being in the keep, I think, is dumb. But let's say that the outposts gave you small combat buffs and harvesting buffs outside of siege time, something that's nice, but it's not the greatest thing in the world. But during siege time, all of a sudden these buffs are magnified significantly. So now when you're sieging, not only are you fighting over the keep, you're fighting over the outpost, because you want to have these outposts for those combat buffs, and that'll spread people out. And you have to think about, okay, how many people do we want to hit the wall? How many people do we want making sure we have these outposts? Just again, more ideas to spread people out. Who knows if this stuff will work well. These are just spitballing ideas from me. No resources at forts it keeps. At least no rank 10s. This is something that is, I believe, being worked on. Having resources at the forts and keeps is just overkill. The forts are great to have because they're a bank and they give you points. The keeps are great to have because they're a bank and they give you a lot of points. And they also give you crafting bonuses and crafting tables and things. I do not think the resources need to be at the forts and keeps. I think it's just dumb and it's overpowered, and we need to get people out in the world, not 2 feet away from the forts and keeps, out in the world, getting these high-ranked resources that are far away from the forts and keeps. Now, maybe there'll be some that are closer and you want to have a certain fort because it's close to the mine, but I'm just talking about the stuff that's right next to the forts and right next to the keeps. That's silly as fuck. That is something that I believe is being worked on. I don't see the devs intentionally wanting there to be that many things there, but just figured I'd put it on the list. Next thing, a functional skill catch-up system. Now, this is something that they are working on, but these are just my ideas for it. First idea that I've heard spitballed, I believe by them, is gold. Having a gold sacrifice system, some sort of gold dump for being able to catch up on your skill training. And when I say catch up on your skill training, I mean only catch up. Like, you cannot use this mechanic to get ahead. If the game has been out a year, you can only have 1 year of skill training. A new player can catch up to that year, but a veteran player can't get past that year. So that's something I think that would be cool. Gold, because it would make gold always have a baseline value. Gold would always be valuable in some capacity. Another thing they could do is sacrifice. I put this on the forums because it was just like mind-blowing. So Kronos, there's a literal god of time. You could literally sacrifice stuff to Kronos to get time. I mean, how perfect is that, right? So some sort of functional catch-up system I think would be good. And in that same vein, I would like to see, at least from the crafting side of the game is a little tricky with the passive training, but I think from the harvesting side of the game, I really don't think there'd be anybody that would be upset that if there were consumables that allowed you to get 5 plentiful. I think anybody, regardless of skill training, should be able to get 5 plentiful harvesting pips in the winter with consumables. I think that absolutely needs to be a thing. The harvesting or the crafting side of the game is a little bit different, because how do you make the crafters feel special if everybody can craft as good as them with consumables? I'm not sure what they could do with that. But I think not too many people will be upset if you just had to jump through less hoops as a trained harvester to get the harvesting benefits. I don't know. At least the plentiful, right? You still get the extra crit, right? I don't know. I think at least everybody should be able to get the 5 plentiful harvesting pips in winter with consumables. So they have to jump through hoops, but something like that. And that's in addition to the skill catch-up system. So another thing, more PvP events like the Decapathon. So there was a Decapathon event that I thought was pretty cool. It wasn't super like important really, and people didn't like balance could have won easily, but nobody liked the balance skull, so we sort of just let chaos and order. It was kind of a war between chaos and order, even though balance could have easily won. But more stuff like that would be very cool. More events that maybe you could have point bounties on events, more just random stuff like that, I think would be really cool. And would be fun things to do outside of just winning the campaign, right? The Decapathon had nothing to do with the campaign victory. And I think more events like that where you just, it's like another victory condition that's not the main victory condition, right? Like, hey, maybe we can't win the campaign, but maybe we can win this event that's going on right now. So more stuff like that, I think, would be great, because that goes back to the number one problem that Crowfall is going to have, which I made a whole video about, is that losing has to be fun. Losing in Crowfall is the number one problem, is that has to be fun to keep people playing, because if losing's not fun, then guess what? Winning's not going to be fun, because you're not going to be winning against anybody either. So, anyway, that's it for this video. Those are just my random ideas off the top of my head. Hopefully, some of these make sense. Some of these might be really dumb, and maybe you guys will poke holes in them in the comments section down below. But those are just kind of my thoughts on things I'd like to see, or at least ideas that I think should at least, could work maybe. We'll see. Anyway, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're interested in Crowfall, be sure to sign up with my referral link down in the description. If you sign up with that, you get into the beta for free, as well as getting 5% off anything you buy. So definitely do that. At least sign up. And when you sign up, just be sure it's with that URL that you see in the description. And it's not a code you have to type in. It's just that URL. If you do that, you're good. Your 5% discount is locked in. So be sure to do that. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you next time.